Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mickey. I'm your host of Beyond Page One podcast. Today's guest is Aaron Savage. Welcome. Pleased to have him here. Aaron is a partner at Cox Palmer. He's got 16 years of experience specializing in corporate and commercial law. He holds a degree and an MBA from the University of New Brunswick. He's built an impressive career, including owning Savage properties. Additionally, Aaron shares his expertise as an instructor at the University of New Brunswick. He's teaching corporate law and governance. We're really in for a treat today. I'm excited to dive into his wealth of knowledge and insights. Aaron, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Mickey. It's a real pleasure to be here, and hopefully we'll get it right for you, and I can share some insights that are helpful for your audience.
I think you're going to deliver today.
Looking forward to it.
What? Give our audience a little bit of an understanding. What initially sparked your passion for law?
Yeah, well, I think most young lawyers, like or individuals will always say your parents came back at some level and said, "Hey, you're always arguing, you're going to make a good lawyer." That was no exception in my household. But, that's what I say to my kids today. They argue over everything. But, I think you hear it subconsciously over an extended period of time. And I think something does sink in. But I mean, look, beyond that, I think you have this idea that what you want to do is you get out of high school and what are the things that are going to work for me. Law was always in the background. I think it's one of those things that you sort of look at and say, okay, is that real or is it for me? So I did an arts degree, right? So I went and did arts. I studied psychology, philosophy. And during that period of time, I was, you think, well, can I really go to law school? Are my grades good enough? But look, I had some excellent professors at the university level that were very encouraging. That said, yeah, you can absolutely do this. Your grades are great. Go for it. And I guess it's that belief, I think at that time, I'm certainly not, I don't pretend to be an academic. I'm still not today, but, I think it's a belief that you can do it. And that's something I always had in my household growing up, was just this belief. And then, so it's, you've got to understand that you can do it. And then I think you've got to have people around you that are supportive. And then I think you have to have some role models to work off of. And I had some good ones, growing up. And if I'm being brutally honest, I saw some people around me that were lawyers as a young man, and they had a nice life. They drove nice cars, and they seemed to have it together. At least that's the impression I was given. Mm-hmm. Well, funny story on that, because I just did an exercise with one of the young students who was coming in. I co-opted him. He's in our office right now, and I asked him. I said I want him to write a letter. This is 2 days ago. He wrote this letter for me, and I said, I want to know what you hope to accomplish, why you want to be a lawyer, and where you see yourself in 10 years. And it was very similar what he wrote. I read it, and he said, I see a lot of lawyers, and they seem to have their life together. So it looks like a pretty good path. So I think that's part of it, is having good people around you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well said. When you were early in your legal career, I'm sure there were some key challenges. How did you overcome them, and how would you suggest, young lawyers overcome these challenges?
Well, I think everybody's challenges don't go away. Okay. That's number one. They're always there. I mean, look, and I'm the type of individual that somebody, you've got to have a hill to climb. And if I don't have that purpose, then look, it's not necessarily interesting for me. But I think in the early days, look, what are the challenges? If I'm being brutally honest, for me, it was fear. Okay. Like fear of failing, fear of not achieving your goals. And then obviously lack of money was a big one. But, the lack of money was, you come out of school, look, and you're basically broke. You've got a bit of debt to repay. You're not earning big dollars. So you double down on the work. I went to work every day and enjoyed it. And that fear kept me motivated. But, you find time to do the simple things. I think that's in the early days. It was, man, my wife and I, we weren't married at the time, but, we'd run, and we were into photography, and we mountain bike together, and none of that stuff cost money, right? So we saved our money. We didn't even go to Blockbuster. I'm dating myself now, but in my day, you had to go to Blockbuster. We went to the cheap convenience store and bought the 99-cent videos that barely worked half the time. So we saved a lot of money, and we had a plan. I think it's those are certainly the early challenges that we faced. And I know that the young lawyers today are coming out, and their fear is probably more than I had. Their debt burden is probably higher than I had. So how do you deal with that? You've got to have a good mentor, bottom line. So I think, when you're starting out and overcoming the initial challenges of getting into a firm, you've got to get into a firm doing work you like and that you're good at. That's important. Find a mentor that you can work with. And I don't mean a mentorship that's like, maybe I'm getting off topic, but I think, when you think of mentors, too many firms, we check boxes. Okay, go for lunch once a week or once a month, check a box, make sure they're doing certain things. True mentor is somebody that's not necessarily in your firm. I mean, it's somebody that's going to help you and guide you throughout your career. So that was certainly one of the things that I did is I surrounded myself with really good people that were very supportive. And I think, and I still do, so suggesting that we're not going to have any challenges and that it's going to be an easy ride, it's not, and I think if you know that going in, but arm yourself, weaponize those resources around you, which is your mentorship, use your fear to your advantage, gets you out of bed every day, enjoy the simple things, because that's, I don't know, at least for me anyway, Mickey, that's really what it's all about, is having fun along the way. And if you can do that, then you're halfway there.
All worth it then. Yeah. You've been practicing law for 22 years now, right?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. 22 years it goes by, and so I was called to I graduated in 2001, and I was called to the bar in 2002. So yeah, 22 years.
Have there been a lot of changes that you've witnessed in the corporate and commercial law landscape during that time?
Oh God, yeah. Look, yeah. I mean, the legal environment's changed certainly, and the way we work has changed. I think the biggest change that I've witnessed is obviously technology, right? I mean, that has changed everything. When I started, we were, I didn't even have a cell phone when we weren't working remotely. We weren't working from home. You were essentially chained to your desk. A corporate closing, 20 years ago was done in a boardroom with 80 seats around a table with documents everywhere. Mm-hmm. It would take up weeks of time, and the resources and the time we were spending, printing documents and making sure we had signatures and scanning them and copying them and then putting labels on everything. Most of that's done today. We don't do that anymore. So it's very seldom that we do that. So certainly technology has absolutely changed everything to the point where, we don't even really meet with our clients face to face all that often anymore. Most of it's done through Teams, like, face to face over the internet. And of course, DocuSign and the use of technology has changed. One of the things we do at the office is or I talk about a lot, and anybody who knows me, so you're going to get it too, I guess, today, is that I talk about the 80-20 principle, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that or if your listeners are, but the 80-20 principle is sort of like doing more with less. It's this idea that it's an economic theory that, focus on the top 20% of your clients and they'll deliver 80% of your results. And I think you can generally apply that throughout your life. And I think the practice of law and the business of law, we've gotten there. We're doing the things we're good at and using the technology. And by doing that, we can achieve essentially more with less. But that's evolution. That's how it goes. So, and it'll continue on that path. But certainly technology has been the biggest change, and it will continue to be that, is my prediction for the next foreseeable future.
Yeah. Well, I think it's industry wide, but it's also just, across the world in every sort of industry, right? Even in mine, it's like half the time I don't even need humans anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got AI at your disposal and it's just a constantly shifting under us. Right. So I think, but I mean, your business, my business, it probably doesn't matter. You've got to be on top of that. And if you're not, you're going to be in trouble. Right.
100%.
Yeah.
You play a lot of different roles. Obviously, you have the lawyer, entrepreneur, you're a board member, all three of which I'm sure are demanding. How do you manage your time, and prioritize effectively?
I don't know that I do, Mickey. So thank you. I appreciate that, but I don't know that I do. Again, that's one of those things. Look, I am driving to that efficiency, constantly working at it, chasing that rabbit, man. And I don't know that I'll ever catch it, but I really work at it a lot. And how you do it, I don't know. But some of the things I've done over the years, and I'll tell you a story. This is very recent, by the way. So like 3 or 4 days ago, I've been doing a deep dive into this idea, but I was at the gym. Okay. So I'm at the gym and I watched this young lady and she was working out, but she was on her phone while she's actually physically working out. I don't mean like sitting there, which is one thing, but like physically on the phone. And I thought, man, just be present, just be there. And it got me thinking. I thought, wow, that's really the key, isn't it? I think it's just being present. And when I thought about that concept, I really realized that in order to do it, you've got to be ultra focused on what you're doing at the moment, not distracted with extraneous factors. So if you're at work, you get off that elevator, it's showtime. Don't let the distractions in your personal life interfere. And just as when when you get home at night, try to compartmentalize. I think early in my career, I had this idea that I didn't need, compartmentalization was a myth. You couldn't do it. I recall being on, I was at Disney World. I remember this. I was at Disney World and I took a call waiting in line, and I thought, man, I'm doing so great. I'm billing and I'm at Disney with my kids, and how good a father am I? And I thought, wow, looking back, I think why did I take that call? It's still, I can tell you who it was. I can tell you what it was about. It bothers me to this day. But I think it's, the key as I see it now is really just be present, be ultra focused, don't waste time. I mean, it's the only thing you've got. So when you're at the office, I'm at the office from 8 to 6. That's pretty much my routine. I don't work a lot on weekends or evenings unless I absolutely have to. But look, when I'm at the office, there's no wasting time. I barely take lunch. I eat at my desk if at all. Wasted meetings. We don't call meetings for the sake of meetings. We're really tight on our timelines. Then I think when you're home, you've got to spend time with your family, of course. And then I've got my property business, even my real estate business on the side, which takes up a lot of time. The real estate business for me, however, has been, I love it. So I think if you love what you're doing, that's kind of cliche. I get it. But if you really enjoy what you're doing, it's not, it takes the work out of it. Like if you love what you're doing and you're fired up and you're energized. If you talk property with me, I'll do that all day long. And it energizes you. So I think it's a combination of like being super efficient with your time, using technology, and I'll be honest, learn how to say no, right? So 80-20 principle stuff for me was critical. I stumbled upon that when I was teaching, and I think if you can eliminate the work or the factors that are dragging you down and really focus on the good stuff, do the work you're good at and the work you like, man, you're going to produce, right? And you're going to have fun doing it. So it's a bit of magic. I think it takes time to figure out, and everybody has to look at it. But if you can read a lot, try different things, every year, try to improve. So when I started this, when I mentioned I'm always trying to improve upon this, every year we sit down with my team and say, okay, what did we do well? And that's fine. I mean, we pat ourselves on the back a little bit, but almost immediately we're saying, okay, how can we improve? What can we do better for next year? How can we be more efficient? The last thing I want to be is in the office at 10 o'clock at night for no reason. So by being efficient, it gives us more time. And with more time, we can devote that to our families and our friends and our health and well-being.
100%. Well answered. You've authored several articles on in legal and business topics. What kind of drives what drives you to share your insights through writing? Yeah,
I mean, look, when I was in university, I like I said, I did arts, and I think those programs are great. They teach you to read and to write, and you realize through history and philosophy that I've always believed, the pen is mightier than the sword. It truly is. And, maybe we can't change the world every day, but if we put something in writing, maybe it'll have a lasting effect. So that's always been my underlying belief, and I still believe it to this day. I enjoy the writing process, whether it's in articles. The first article I wrote one of the first articles I wrote was, I attended it was a conference for I think it was like people that work in the woods and in the forestry sector. And it was attended, and anyway, there was tax experts there and lawyers there, and I was listening. Presented this, and I thought, man, this is terrible. These papers are terrible. I didn't think they were well done. So I went out and I thought, well, I'll just deliver the paper that I thought should have been delivered. And it was certainly well received. I think in the early days, it helps to put you on the map. I still believe that if you can write and get your name out there, no better way to do it, right? And in those days, we're going back to early 2000s. It was legal journals. It was, magazines or publications that were on point. So, if you could get your name out there and show that you had some expertise, then that was excellent. I think more recently, those journals they've been replaced with, in my view, like social media, LinkedIn, and there's so many opportunities to get message out in a direct way. So, I think it's always been something I've enjoyed doing, but then selfishly, and perhaps it's a great way to promote yourself, particularly in the early days. If you can write and be on topic. So for me, that was always a motivating factor. Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna pat you on the back a little bit right now. So you've been recognized by the Canadian Legal Expert Directory and the best lawyers in Canada. So significant achievement. What does that mean to you to be acknowledged in that way? And then, as a leading practitioner in your field, how do these things motivate you to continue excelling?
Yeah, not at all, Mickey. Seriously, not at all. I mean, look, it's nice and it's great. I'm cynical by nature, so I think when anybody sort of slaps an award on you, you sort of think, or designate, or say here a recognition, you start. I'm like, okay, well, what's in it for them, and
Yeah.
So no, but look, it doesn't. I don't think anybody who receives those designations or those awards gets up every day and says, well, I'm gonna be the next great lawyer, and I'm going to get this award. It's not what motivates you at all. I think it's certainly nice to receive them, certainly, and particularly the peer reviewed awards are nice. I'm not going to lie, it's nice to get, but I don't think it motivates me. The things that I really enjoy, that I think the recognition that honestly has been best for me was, the teaching award was nice. I got a couple of years. I got the top teaching award at UNB. That was an important one. I felt really good about that. But I'll be honest, the stuff that I like the most is when I get a client that writes to me and says, man, thank you, great work, or I appreciate what you've done, or sometimes we'll do something for a family member, and and they get back to us, and just because look, the reason we exist, the reason I exist, and my team exists every day is to provide service to our clients. That's it. To assist them in their success, whatever that looks like for them. We want to be a part of that. And when we can it's a thankless profession. You don't get a lot of thanks. There's nobody has a lot of sympathy for lawyers.
Yeah.
And nor should they. We don't look for that. But man, when I get a card or a nice letter from a client, I just love that. I actually set them aside. And I have them in my office, and we keep them in a folder. And the members of my team, I said, look, and it's not just me. To me, it's representative of what we do as a group. And I said, look, there's going to be days when you sort of question, okay, what the heck are we doing here? And should I just pack it up and go home? And look, everybody has that. We all have that. And I do that once in a while. I'll do it for about 2 seconds, and I slap myself and say, okay, stop this. It's not productive. And if you need a reminder, open up the file and look at all the good things we've done. The people that value what we've done and value what we do every day. So I think those recognitions are really, really important. But look, not going to lie, we like those recognitions. You grab them, put them on a shelf, and move on. So,
that's fair. But I appreciate that sentiment where it really comes down to who is it that you're helping, and that's what you do. You're here to help, and you're here to provide a service. And when people give you feedback, that's what matters. Right?
That's it. I mean, that's it. We started a few years ago. We sat down and we thought about, and all law firms are a little bit different, but my approach is somewhat different, I suppose, but it's not, you say, okay, well, what are we doing here? Well, we have 200 lawyers across the land of Canada in bright, shiny offices. We're great lawyers, and you should give us a try. Okay, well, great. My view is no, it's really the opposite of that. We're here to service. We're here to help you achieve that. We want to do it in a way that's, respectful for the client and for us. We do it in a healthy, happy environment. We just happen to be great lawyers. It's that type of an approach. And I think if you can dial in and really zero in on that, it changes your perspective and you can come to work every day. And I still believe we're doing great work. As long as I do, I'll continue doing this. But you're right. That's it's no different in your business, right? I mean, you're there to service your clients and
it comes down to, in my world, it's, getting a call from a business that says, hey, we've had our busiest quarter ever. And thank you so much. And, we're hiring, we're building our team. That to me is hey, this is awesome.
Yeah.
The day to day, it's fine. Don't get me wrong. It pays my bills and I'm happy about it, but it's what I do for other people, really. That feeds me.
Yeah. And that's the best, isn't it? And I think you hit it on the head. I mean, the money part, okay, everybody, if you're centered on the money, no, that's again a bit cliche, but I really believe if you're just focused on the service and trying to achieve those top end results, the money is a secondary factor. It's a byproduct of your efforts and the service you provide, right? Yeah.
If there's a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self, what would it be?
Yeah, I just would have said it's going to be okay.
Stop being scared.
Don't worry. Don't worry so much. Honestly, then I can unpack that a little bit, but that was really it. I mean, I was a pretty intense guy in my early days and, bundled up with all this fear and anxiety, uncertainty, not knowing what the future was going to look like. And I think we all have that to some degree, but, I think I would definitely have said, it's going to be okay. Just relax. And then no one really told me that. I think, if you're approaching it with a good work ethic and you show up every day and you're being consistent, there was only one real outcome, and all the fears that I had were unnecessary, unfounded. And I tell that to my young team, the members of my team today. I just look at them and I see a lot of them and I see a lot of me in them. I guess we attract similar type people and I tell them that all the time. It's going to be okay. Just relax. Enjoy the moment. It's going to be over in before you know it, man. And it's a short ride and enjoy every second and just relax. I think that's one of the things I would have said, and I think of like you said, the time you start this profession, you're 25 years old. I'm in my late 40s now. And you sort of look at it and say, where did that go? And then you think the next 20 years is going to go just as fast. So just enjoy it. And enjoy the ride and try to meet and learn. It's a wonderful profession. And I think young lawyers today just have so much to be grateful for and to look forward to as they move down this path.
Yeah, it always interests me. You mentioned earlier, you were talking about the girl at the gym, right? On her phone.
Yeah.
And this might be a question on a left field because it's actually not on here, but it's something that's just making me think about things, is the generational differences between, young lawyers now versus, when you were coming up. Do you see a lot of differences of, attitudes, in a sense of delayed gratification, or people that are looking to they want to hit it big and they want to do it now and they don't want to wait and they don't necessarily have the backbone to put in the work. I find that my generation is very much like that oftentimes, where they need instant gratification.
Yeah. I mean, you hear that a lot, right? And you can probably every generation has a bit of that moving back, but definitely there's generational gaps that occur here. And look, there's a shortage of lawyers right now. Make no question about it. There's a shortage of lawyers. We can't find them, and in large part, that's maybe the cause. I think part of if you can get it right, I think lawyers will put in the work. And I think you can, or any profession. And I sort of look back and say, okay, what were the files and things that I really enjoyed doing? And it was, work I was doing. Basically, I felt respected in that I was in a place where they really respected what I was doing in my service. Yeah. They value my contributions. Okay. And I think if you feel valued, and by that I mean they're billing you and presumably they're making some money on you. But I think the third one is, that you feel part of something.
Yeah.
And if you feel part of something that's bigger than than you, or that you're contributing to a greater cause, or that you're on a team and you're doing something special, man, young lawyers will work, so I think it's incumbent upon us, or me, with my team, to build that. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do. Look, so when I can create that environment, the younger generation lawyers are working. They come and they're energized, and the turnover is reduced, right? Yeah. But I think young lawyers too today, and young professionals, and it's the same in your business, are also impatient. They're not, I don't know if I can say this or not, but their bullshit meter is very low, right? You know what I'm saying? So they're not going to tolerate they've got options. They can go other places where they can be valued, respected, and, be part of something. So you're seeing that type of turnover. And I think law historically has been a very long-term carrot. Look, they dangle the carrot out in front of you. You'll be a partner in 10 years. And then 10 years after that, you can do this. And, and you'll make money in your 50s. Well, nobody wants that anymore, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's really willing to put in that kind of time. So it's incumbent upon the law firms to create those environments where young people can thrive and grow. And I think if you can do that, they'll stay. But to your point, for young people today, there's a great opportunity there, because I hear what you're saying. A lot of people aren't willing to put in the work. And I think there is some truth to that, right?
Yeah.
So for a young person coming out, man, put in the effort, put in the work, you can do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Like, really, you can have pretty much whatever you want if you're willing to do it strategically, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate kind of what you said, because it's really like you as a business owner, as a partner, you set the stage for the young people, right? And if you have a good culture and you motivate the young people, you'll attract good people, and good people will want to work for you, right? So no, I really appreciate your insights on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge factor, right? And we've noticed that, and I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of young lawyers, and a lot of young students have come out from law school wanting to work with us. Saying, "Can I?" And a lot of the times they're like, "No." We have one guy, I'm thinking of in particular. He sort of forced his way in, but he's just been great. And I thought, okay, the third or fourth time he reached out, and then I said, "Well, okay, we'll have lunch." And I met him, and I said, "All right, we'll bring you on and see what happens." And, but you have to admire that tenacity, right? 100%. And so I think if you've got that, you can achieve a lot. So I think just young lawyers, go get it. Just young professionals, go for it, man. Try. The world's there for you. But you're right. I mean, it's incumbent upon us to create that environment. And I think any lawyer, any professional, any individual look back and say, okay, well, what is it you want? What kind of environment do you want to create? For me, it was really simple. I just said, well, what I wanted when I was coming through, and that's what I've tried to do. And part of it's just being real with each other. But we've got a wonderful team. We're dialed in, and when you can do that, guess what? Results happen.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah.
What are some there's some like complex or really interest corporate or commercial cases that you've worked on that you can share with the listeners? Anything that like comes to mind? And you're like, oh yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, there are certainly over the years. I mean, I can't name names obviously for client confidentiality, but again, I mean, this comes back to what I was saying. What were they? Well, okay, so earlier in my career, I loved it. I mean, I just was immersed. We were called down to Halifax. So I'm based out of New Brunswick, Fredericton, New Brunswick. This time I was called in. I work for a regional firm. So we were called in. They flew lawyers in from all of the provinces. I think it was probably 100 or 150 of us. And it was part of a large multinational transaction. It was in the $1 billion range. And so our firm was on for the buyer. And we were at the initial stages of it, and it was a 3-week project. I lived in a hotel. I was billing, I don't know, 20 hours a day for 3 weeks, just completely exhausted, but also, energized, because you're just part of this team. And I led a group of lawyers. It wasn't glamorous work, but we were doing lease review. I think it was lease reviews, if I'm correct, but But again, it comes back to what I said earlier. And I always loved that file. And I came home and I was completely exhausted, and it was, my girlfriend, now wife. But there's another funny story. I won't bore you with it that came out of that whole session. But I came home just completely exhausted, but absolutely loved every second of it. And when I think about it, that's kind of what led to those three pillars that I identified, which were, okay, why did I like that so much? I was doing, I was obviously respected. They flew me in. I was valued. Every penny of my time was billed, and I was contributing, and I was part of something. So I thought, oh, wow, maybe that's the key, right? So if you're in the team building exercise, like those files really stuck out for me, and it was a great opportunity for a young lawyer. And I always enjoyed that one. More recently, I would say I want to be careful here. We just about a year and a half ago, we concluded quite a large transaction for one of our clients, transitioning them in the sale process and navigating them through that. And we ended up doing a structured management buyout, which was incredible. Working with the CEO, working with their management team to contribute that. I think that one will always stick out for me. And it was local in a sense. And so a lot of jobs were at stake, and I feel good that we directed or assisted them to make some of the decisions they made. And I'll forever be grateful for that opportunity. It was just a very large file, and working with their CEO probably for the better part of a year and a half on it. And, and we're still with that client, and they're still here in the Atlantic region and employing people as they should. It was those are the ones I really enjoy, those ones. But again, respect, valued, and being part of something. I just wanted to finish this one off because I think this one was important for me too. We do a lot of work for First Nations, some of the First Nations communities in New Brunswick, and that is some of the most rewarding work for me, is because when we can assist them with their economic development work. And I'm not getting into the land claim. We don't do that, but the economic development stuff where we're assisting with basically sustainability and moving them into the future. How rewarding is that, right? It's just fantastic. So I really enjoy that type of work. Again, where we're making a difference. And I think as long as we can do that and hit those three pillars, if we can check those three boxes off the files, those are the memorable ones, right? I've got dozens of those I could speak to, but I think with most people, check those three boxes off, and that's what we're looking for. As hard as the work is, it doesn't really matter. You can walk away and you feel good about it, and you feel energized about it and ready to take on the next one, right?
Yeah, your cup's full, so to speak.
Yeah, as full as can be, because it's not always the case, right? So
yeah, no, 100%, and that's why we keep those cards on the desk.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Awesome. You've answered this a little bit, but I'll ask it anyways. What advice would you give aspiring lawyers, who want to specialize in the corporate and commercial law world?
Yeah, I guess the first, when you said what would you say to yourself, it's a bit loaded there, because I know what I'm like. But I think if I were talking to young lawyers today, okay, well, number one, corporate, great field, there's demand, there's a shortage of lawyers, so there's a lot of opportunity there. But, really, if you don't like it, don't do it. And so try to figure out what you like, or what you want to like, or what you're good at or want to be good at, and then go for it. Get into a firm, I think is what I would say, is get into a firm and get with somebody that does this type of work and get exposed to it. Figure out what it is. And if it's not for you, don't mess around, because it's hard. There's no textbook that teaches you corporate law. So you don't get into this field and sort of, how to say it, download it all and you're an expert. It really is by osmosis. So we're learning, you learn on the job, and you're only really going to be as good as the people around you. So get a mentor. I can't say that one's, look, any lawyer, by the way, who's good at their craft has had, and I guarantee you this. You can pick any lawyer who's at the top or near the top of their field. They've had excellent mentors, period. And I mean the true mentors, not the box checking mentors. The true, I'm here to guide you. I want you to be more successful than I was. I'm going to give you all of my insights, and I want you to be the greatest you can be. You need that. So if, you can't, if you're struggling in a firm that doesn't provide mentorship or guidance and you're doing work that you don't like and aren't really good at, I would say get out, whatever that is. Go find the thing that you're good at, that you like to do, get a mentor. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of advice we can give, but I think, but the other thing that comes to mind, honestly, is like soft skills. Develop that, because with AI, like, look, I mean, we can mechanize out, or we can automate most of the stuff we're doing, right? So, like in the early days, like I said at the start of our conversation, a lot of our time was photocopying and labels. Well, that's gone now. Gone are the days where lawyers are going to be in a corner doing memos, research. That can be done easily through AI and through technology.
Yeah.
Soft skills. So, I wrote a piece on this, but I thought it bears repeating here, which was, I had a young student who said, "Do I want to come work with you, for the summer?" He was young in law school. And I said, "Don't." It's sort of counterintuitive, right? And he said, "What do you mean, don't? I want to learn." And I said, "You need to learn, like, what is your job history?" It was more academic, and which is great. I mean, I'm not like, all these kids today are coming out, these young men and women are with top grades. But the thing that I think they're missing is, the retail sales. My family had a bicycle shop in Fredericton. So I grew up in that entrepreneurial background or environment. So we sold and bicycles, and we worked. And so but I've always had a great admiration. And when I see some of the top lawyers in my firm, well, guess what? They came out of retail. They were bartenders. They were waitresses, right? Where they learned those soft skills, dealing with difficult people. I mean, anything harder than being a bartender or a waitress, right? I don't know. I did it. And, you really learn how to multitask. I love seeing young men and women that have their own businesses. That's great. If you can do that, they're managing clients. So I think those soft skills are going to be in high demand as we move forward. Don't underestimate that. I think the young men and women coming out today should look to hone those, and no better way to do it than in those sectors, in my view.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
You're a registered trademark agent as well.
Yeah.
So how important is intellectual property protection for businesses today? I'm dealing with something. I'm not going to get into it, but I want to ask that question.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's huge, right? Whether you're dealing with patents, copyrights, or trademarks, but and I've felt this for a very, very long time. If your brand, if you're in business and you value your brand and you value your image, well, protect it, right?
Yeah.
And the way you protect it, of course, is through trademarks. So trademarks will protect, word marks and things like that. I think McDonald's, the golden arches, or the phrase "I'm loving it," are all protected through our trademark regime. So businesses really need to think about that. I think most people are tuned to that today in today's environment. But the cost, the cost is prohibitive. It's not a cheap exercise, and it takes time. It takes a lot of time. So unfortunately, for a lot of startups or young businesses that are, in the if you're struggling to keep the lights on, getting a $5,000 bill from your trademark lawyer may not be the top priority. So it's about balancing those. I wouldn't say it's a major part of our practice. When we started doing trademark law, it was again really to provide that service, that rounded out service to our clients that were in that space, and we try to do it economically and in a way that makes sense for the client. So we're happy to be in that space, and I think it's an important one. And again, lack of trademark agents. There's not a lot of people out there doing it. So young lawyers out there, good area to get into.
Well said. It's one of my last questions, and we've touched on it throughout the whole conversation. But what's the most fulfilling aspects for you from a career perspective, from family perspective, as a lawyer, as a business owner? What are some of the most fulfilling aspects of all of it?
Well, I mean, I think, I'm glad you added family in there, because, that's number one in my world is, I've got a couple of kids now, and they're, this has always been about them. And I think if you focus it, anything other than that, and you can lose your direction pretty quickly. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to, like my kids eat and they've got the things they need and they're well adjusted and I'm hard on them and all of that stuff. So to me, that's my greatest, probably my greatest achievement, right? Very, very, obviously professionally, I'm quite content. I love my team. I love coming to work every day and just making the lawyers that work with me, they're better every day. And I love seeing their success, whether it's, some of them move on, right? And that's okay. And I love watching that, man, if you can have a colleague that goes on to achieve great success and then sort of says thank you at the end of the day for allowing me to, or giving me the opportunity to work with you, is great. So I love that. Love building the team out. But yeah, I think the reward is in the work. And we've talked about it, and I think we've touched on it throughout, is the recognition from the clients. No question. When you get a good result, we celebrate that, whether it's down at the brewery or we have a great little pub around the corner from us that we drop in once in a while. And we picked up I call it, I don't know what it is. We haven't really named it yet, but we call it, it's a gong. It's a closing gong. So
I have one too. That's hilarious. I have a massive gong in the hallway. Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah. Okay. Wicked. So mine isn't massive, but it's, and so we come out, and if it's worthy of celebrating, then man, you do it. And the office hears it. And so I love that type of thing. So it's just having a little bit of fun along the way. But I think you've got to slow down and look back. And I don't tend to do that a great deal, right? Because I always tell my team, the people around me, I say, man, it's, what we did in the past, good, bad, or ugly, doesn't matter. It's the next move that's key. Don't get too caught up in it, celebrate, but then move on. So I don't tend to dwell too much on the past, but it's nice once in a while to look back and see how far I've come, and I'm very grateful for that. But what's the recipe? I don't know. Man, it's just a combination of hard work, persistence, willing to make mistakes, which I talk about that all the time, but showing up consistently every day. And if you can do that, and then I think something happens around the 15, I don't know when it was. I was saying this to someone the other day. I think it's around maybe the 10 or 15 year mark in our profession. The first 5 years, you're just learning. The next 5 years, you kind of get accustomed to it, and you get your feet under you. So you're 10 years in. 10 years to 15 years, you're quite competent. But I think when you hit that 15-year mark, the magic, all of the things you've learned, it is a magic. I can't explain it, but it comes together, coalesces in a way. If you've done the hard work, that it achieves nice results. So it's nice to look back and to see the path, and knowing that it wasn't easy. And that's what I like about it. I think when I look back, I say, man, this was challenging. It was hard, and I did it. And but then I turn around and I see the mountain that I'm still climbing every day.
What's next?
And I'm just going to continue to do that. And hopefully I get to do it for many years.
That's awesome. Well said. Aaron, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I really appreciate your insights and all the work that you put in. From our end, we're going to be done here. Aaron's profile for his LinkedIn and everything like that is going to be linked below. Make sure to give him a follow, and if you're interested, subscribe to the channel. And again, Aaron, thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to hang back after this, but I'm going to go ahead and end it.
Thanks, Mickey. This is real